It's finally here! The Skylanders Swap Force tier list! Only a month late. Once again, I started this for the 10th anniversary and once again went into an absurd amount of detail trying to get everything right, only for me to probably mess something up again. There's a few things I want to get out of the way before we start the list. First, this is a ranking of how viable these guys are in story mode and all the extra modes, on the hardest difficulties. No PvP because I don't have any friends. And second, this ranking is going to be different from the others due to the changes that Swap Force has brought through the game. I'm not making revisions because Swap Force has fundamentally changed how a lot of the game is played. For starters, enemies have a ridiculously bloated HP pool, so this means that a lot of the game relies on not getting hit, which of course means that the game favors ranged attacks even more. There's two ways to compensate for this, however. One is the huge buff to elemental power, but the other is a tool that every Skylander has now. Jumping. You can't attack while jumping, but certain moves can be jump cancelled. This provides a quick getaway for many characters and is just good for mobility in general. Many characters have also received nerfs, like attack speed and damage, while some have received damage buffs as well as some attacks now being able to launch or stun enemies. This is the main reason that I decided not to do revisions. A lot of Skylanders are just so different now that it's going to be kind of hard to judge them based on the previous two games. Nightmare mode also works a little differently. If getting hit would do more than half of your health, then it only does half rounded up, meaning that you can actually play Skylanders at level 1. And the last thing is armor stat. Instead of being a chance to block damage, it reduces your damage taken. It isn't a lot, but it does help out a number of Skylanders. Also, I'll be ranking the best version of each character, because if you're trying to buy one of these guys, you're either buying all of your favorites, or forcing yourself to get ones that you don't want, and if that's the case, then get the best one, obviously. Also, both halves of the Swap Force will be ranked together, because you buy them together. You're not going to get one half without the other. But, without any more delay, let's just get right into it. So real quick before we start, I figured I'd go over each of the tiers. S, obviously, means you're the best in the game. It means you have some sort of broken ability that you can use, or you just do a lot of damage. A is for pretty good. You can handle most of the modes properly, but you have one or two flaws holding you back. B is just perfect middle of the road. You can do better, but you could also do way worse. For C tier, you're going to have a lot of trouble using these guys, but they're salvageable at least. And then D for Doomstone. I think you know who's going here. Whether it's low damage or low movement speed, you're probably not going to be using these guys. So that the way that they have this tier list set up is that they have the Spyro's Adventures characters first, and then the Giants, and then the Swap Force. And I think that's a pretty good way of doing it. Because frankly, if you want to 100% the game, these 8 swappers on either side can get you through the entirety of the game, get 100%, and probably carry you through most of the difficult game modes. But if you want to have some fun with some of your favorites, then that's perfectly fine too. Alright, starting off with a Lightning Rod. So the biggest change to Lightning Rod is that a lot of his attacks start stunning enemies. Like they'll put them into a shock and they can't move for a brief period. This is really good for him because it means that now enemies can't just like walk through his lightning avatar attack or his sapper field. And I think they also buffed his A attack to be stronger. I'm not entirely sure about that, but I think it does more damage. I'd honestly have to say that he's pretty solid. Probably middle of the road seems right for now. A pretty good start here. The B path is really strong, but since you have to stand still, it's not as good because you can't stun everyone, and some enemies are immune to stun. Like, notably, a lot of the evilized characters are, and the gear golems. But that doesn't really matter too much. The damage over time from the A attack is pretty solid, but I think the best path in this game is actually the tertiary path, since it stuns enemies in a big range and does quite a bit of damage in this game. The Series 2 WoW POW is just okay still. You can't just like hold the charge and release it whenever you want. Whenever you start that charge, you're committed. You're either not doing it because you let go too early, or you're doing it way too early. But I believe the Series 2 WoW POW does stun enemies, which is good. I'm debating whether or not to put him in B or A tier, but we'll see how the rest of the tier list pans out. Next up is Sonic Boom. She is probably C tier, yeah. The B path is just worthless on her, unfortunately. The babies all die in one hit, and they don't even really do that much damage. Series 2 WoW POW also suffers from the same issues as the secondary attack path. Its best use is honestly just spamming the egg throw, but I mean, if you're gonna do that, just go down the primary attack path. Speaking of, the primary attack path is still pretty good in this game. Does good damage, and I also really like the echolocation ability, as it's able to hit a bunch of enemies in a big horde. And Swap Force really likes spamming those at you. I will say one thing, her charge primary attack is probably one of the better ones since you can move around while charging it, and it does a pretty good amount of damage. It's not insane or anything, and the biggest problem is obviously that you stand still when doing it, but it does knock enemies back, which is a good thing. But yeah, if it wasn't for one of her paths being almost entirely useless, I think she'd be a little higher. Warnado, also like Lightning Rod, had his primary attack buffed, where now it does way more damage, and both of his other attacks aren't too bad either. Honestly, you could probably just get by with spamming his primary attack, but I wouldn't discount his secondary attack either, since it launches enemies, but it's kind of inconsistent, and the fact that you can only have one of them out does really hinder it a lot. But since it tracks for you, I think that's probably about as good as you're gonna get. The C-Path is just okay. It does a lot of damage with the slam, and since it also has those projectiles, it has good range on it, but that's really about it. Also, his Soul Gem decreases damage taken, which is pretty solid on Nightmare mode. Probably gonna put him above Sonic Boom. Warnado also has a Light Core variation in Swap Force. I'm not gonna count this as points for or against, since the Light Core nuke isn't really that good in this game, especially since enemies have a bunch of HP. But if you are looking to pick up Warnado, I'd definitely pick up the Light Core, since it looks pretty cool. Now, Whirlwind is one of my favorite Skylanders, if not my favorite, and I will say that she has managed to survive each game pretty well, but I will say that the Series 3 Wow Pow is just not that great. You have to stand still when using it, and it is kind of weird to execute since you have to hold the tertiary attack button down, and it doesn't even like launch enemies or anything, it just does damage. So it's mainly a boss killer, and only specific bosses at that. The Series 2 Wow Pow is still really good though, and the B path is just crazy in this game. Like, I didn't think it could be any more powerful, but it is. Because now not only does it do crazy damage, it also stuns enemies because it's a lightning attack. Even her primary attack path isn't that bad. The black hole is kind of bad, but the double rainbow lob does quite a bit of damage. Lobs just aren't as useful in this game as they were in Spyro's Adventure, but I'd still say that she's pretty solid. In fact, I'm still putting her in S. But maybe like bottom of S. I don't know. Probably not.
How about no?
Now Bash is an example of a Skylander that I think that they actually nerfed. His primary attack used to do 80 damage, but now I think it only does 70. But I mean, that doesn't really affect him too much, he's still pretty solid. In the last list I said that the Series 2 Wow Pow wasn't that great, but in this game, since it launches enemies and does good damage, I think it's actually not that bad. Though the secondary attack path still isn't that good. You'd probably want to go for the primary attack path. If you go on the primary attack path, you also get a charge move that does a ludicrous amount of damage. But it's a little risky since you have to hold still for a minute, but launches enemies very far, and 200 damage is quite a bit. I think if you were to go for him, I'd recommend getting the Series 2, but go on the primary attack path. Because then you could get in, launch enemies, and then hit them with your tail. Honestly, subject to change, but I think he might be one of the best in the game. Dino Rang is actually pretty solid in this game. The A path is actually pretty good since the boomerangs do a bunch of damage, and the B attack also launches enemies now, but I think it does less damage in this game compared to the other games. The primary attack can feel kind of inconsistent at medium ranges, which is really unfortunate because that's most of the combat in this game. Also, bouncing off walls isn't nearly as good as it is on Trigger Happy because the boomerangs don't go nearly as far as the bullets do. But it still does a good amount of damage. Also, the Soul Gem feels really inconsistent sometimes. Like, sometimes you pick up food and sometimes you don't. It's weird. The tertiary attack path is actually pretty good. Less because it's a trap and more because now it has a starting hitbox and you can kind of just spam that because it launches enemies in the air and does a pretty good amount of damage. His only problem, really, is that he's slow and he doesn't really have access to anything else, although the armor upgrade is probably pretty helpful on him. Prism Break, unfortunately, just isn't that good in this game. Him and Dino Rang kind of share the same problem, at least Dino Rang on a secondary attack path, share key problems where killing enemies with certain moves means that you get more mileage out of them. Like with Dino Rang, if you kill them with a trap, you get another trap, but that doesn't really matter since you're mashing the tertiary attack button anyway. And with him, it's very hard to do because enemies just don't die as easily in this game. So the Soul Gem isn't really that great because you can't chain enemies together that easily. And also the crystals die in one hit. So kind of the same problem as Sonic Boom. The secondary attack does a lot of damage, but it's kind of weird to hit. It's a little awkward. Also, the primary attack just doesn't last as long as it should. Like, you'll be holding the button down for like a second and it'll just stop doing it. The Series 2 Wow Pow is okay. It does good damage. Same with the Series 3. I just don't really think that he's that worth it because he's really slow and he's kind of hard to hit. The tertiary attack is actually pretty strong. It doesn't go very far unless you're specifically on the secondary attack path. I think he just has the same problem as Sonic Boom, where the crystals die in one hit, and his main game plan is getting those crystals up. Now Terrafin, bro, they fucking killed him, dude. I'm not sure what happened, but it feels like the primary attack is slower in this game. I think the damage got buffed, but I think the attack speed itself went down, so it's not really as good as it was in previous games. So I wouldn't even recommend going down the primary attack path, just because trying to get it up close in enemies' faces isn't really that worth it. At least 2 of the combos launch enemies, but that's not really that great when you have to get up close and personal and have to do 2 attacks before you do the combos. The Series 2 Wow Pow is good. It's easier to execute now since you can instead press jump instead of having to press both the attack buttons in a sequence. But it also doesn't knock enemies back very far, and it doesn't launch them, which means that you can actually end up getting hit in the air. The Series 3 Wow Pow is kind of the same. It does less damage than the Series 2 one, but it's less vulnerable as well. But I think his biggest problem is that you're inevitably going to be forced out of the ground when you're on the secondary attack path. Like, yeah, it gets you out of danger, but eventually the game is just going to turn on you. So for that reason, I think he's probably our first D tier. Eruptor. His secondary attack path is good. It has kind of low damage, but it hits a lot and has really good area control. The A path is also pretty good. It does a lot of damage and has good range, and it's pretty spammable as well. Although, surprisingly, his tertiary attack is what does the most damage. The Series 2 Wow Pow does good damage, but it's kind of hard to turn with, so maybe not that great. The Series 3 Wow Pow, on the other hand, does crazy damage, but it's kind of hard to aim where you want it to go, and it leaves you wide open. So if an enemy gets up to you, you're probably gonna get hit. Overall, though, I'd say he's actually pretty good. Probably better than Dino Rang just because he has a Wow Pow. Probably not better than Zeus over here. Flameslinger is actually pretty good. The primary attack path does a lot of damage, has insane range, and covers a pretty solid arc in front of him. The secondary attack path isn't bad either. The primary attack leaves puddles of fire that damage enemies over time. The primary charge attack isn't that great, since it's kind of hard to aim, and I don't even know how good the damage is. The Series 2 Wow Pow is actually pretty good though. Although, I hope you really like circles, because that's basically what you're going to be spamming. The tertiary attack is just terrible though. I swear they actually nerfed the amount of arrows he shoots into the air with it. But overall, I'd say he's a solid pick. Easy A tier. Ignitor. So kind of the same thing with both Flameslinger and Whirlwind is that his secondary attack path isn't really that necessary since you don't need to lob anymore. It also just leaves you way too open. And I swear the explosion on the secondary attack path is just slower to come out now. The primary attack path though is really good though. He feels like one of the only melee characters that didn't get an attack speed nerf. And the tertiary attack is really strong, and you can also just move as fast as you usually do when you're charging it. So you can just kind of run away and keep spamming the tertiary attack. The Series 2 Wow Pow damage over time is not really that great, which is why I think the secondary attack path just feels worse in this game, but it is helpful at least. Still, you're mainly just going to be spamming the tertiary attack over and over. Probably A tier. Now Sunburn, unfortunately, is not that good. I keep hammering it in, but enemies just have way too much HP in this game, and there's no way you're ever going to really see the Fire Phoenix too often. The primary attack path is good, but it takes way too long to actually get the full damage out of it. And the B path is just bad. Like, simply put, it's just bad. It does good damage at least, and the AoE is solid, but you're basically always teleporting yourself right into danger, and since it doesn't launch enemies, you're probably just going to get hit. The tertiary attack is still like decent movement option, I guess. But overall, I'd say that Sunburn probably is the worst of the Fire Skylanders now. Nah, probably not better than Sonic Boom. Definitely better than Prism Break, though. Now, Camo is actually really interesting, since he has a Series 3 variant, but he doesn't have a Series 2 variant. And I'll say that the Wow Pow is actually pretty good. It doesn't really work great with the tertiary attack path. It does a lot of damage and the range is okay, but it's kind of slow to come out, and if enemies don't get hit by it, you're basically a sitting duck. The secondary attack path is way better because it has huge range and just does more damage to bigger enemies. The Soul Gem has actually been buffed to get more healing, but it is still kind of annoying to set up since if one of the Sun Balls hits a wall, you can't just get it started. Overall, actually a pretty solid A tier. Stealth Elf. So same problem as last time. The secondary attack path is literally just worthless. Never even bother with it. This primary attack path is just so much better, it's not even funny. The Soul Gem has actually been buffed to heal more HP now, which can come in clutch on Nightmare mode specifically. Although it does seem like the tertiary attack feels slower to start up now, like it feels less spammable. I'll put some footage up just to see like side by side, see what it's different between games, but the main thing is that it just feels a little slower to come out, and that's about it. It's still a good burst movement option, and the fact that it does damage on the primary attack path is really good. The Series 2 Wow Pow actually feels better in this game since it's easier to execute, and you probably won't accidentally do a combo. The Series 3 Wow Pow is kind of weird. It does a lot of damage, but you have to hit both hits in order to get a lot of the damage, and it leaves you open quite a bit, especially to some of the bigger enemies. But still, overall, probably still pretty solid. Especially since she's really fast, she can actually avoid a lot of damage. Now, Stump Smash actually got buffed in this game. The Soul Gem, instead of healing you while you're swimming, heals you while you're in water elemental zones. Why you would ever do this is beyond me, but hey, it's something at least. It's better than what it was in Giants. The Series 2 Wow Pow is also still pretty good, but his main problem is, as usual, he's still too slow. His primary attack does a lot of damage, and the secondary attack path is also still pretty good if you machine gun all the acorns. His primary/tertiary attack path isn't really that worth going down, since it doesn't increase your damage, and all it does is like add combos and add things you can do with the Mega Nuts. But that's really all I gotta say about his Stump Smash. His secondary attack is good, and if you can set it up on a platform where you can avoid damage, it's actually pretty solid. Nah, probably not better than Sunburn. Still probably better than Prism Break. Now, Zook is actually still really good. The primary attack path is really good in terms of both damage and crowd control. Since the shrapnel knocks back enemies, it's a very spammable projectile. The secondary attack path still pairs very well with the Series 2 Wow Pow. Enemies still get distracted by all the walls. And the tertiary attack now actually tracks and it has insane range. Like, it goes farther than the primary attack. Overall, pretty good. I think right behind Flameslinger feels correct. So Double Trouble still kind of has the same problem that Stealth Elf does, where the secondary attack path is just terrible. Its only real use that I managed to get out of it is when you kill an enemy with the beam, you can immediately power up the guy that spawns in right after. But I mean, come on, the primary attack path is still the way to go, and obviously works well with the Series 2 Wow Pow. The tertiary attack is still not amazing. It does decent damage at least. And his Soul Gem got buffed where now his speed increases in water elemental zones, which, I mean, again, why would you do that? But it's something at least. And he can hover over hazards, which I wasn't able to test, but I'm assuming this means he can hover over stuff like the goo in like Chaos's Fortress or whatever. I'd at least assume that's what that means. But overall, he's still a pretty solid option. Honestly, probably still S tier. Spyro. Now, Spyro's a classic, and he's still actually pretty good in this game. The primary attack is still just as spammable and does quite a bit of damage. However, the secondary attack path also stuns enemies and does pretty good damage as well. It's just, again, the problem is that some enemies just don't get stunned, and it's not really that great against them. The Series 2 Wow Pow is still pretty good, it does a lot of damage, but the Series 3 one is kind of weird. It's a little convoluted and it's kind of hard to aim, and the damage just really isn't even that great to begin with. I think you're probably just better off spamming primary attack with him. But hey, spamming primary attack doesn't bring him down at all. Yeah, probably right here. So Voodood, I think, actually got buffed in this game, since I think the zipline range got increased by a little bit. And when you're on the primary attack path, it also comes out faster. And honestly, just go with the primary attack path. Utility path is, like, basically worthless. Its only real saving grace is that it stuns nearby enemies, but that's not even really that great, since obviously it doesn't work on every enemy. Also, the tripwires are still just stupid. Like, don't even bother with it. They do decent damage, but, I mean, decent isn't really good enough when the axe just does way more damage. Probably around Warnado tier. Nah, yeah, that makes sense. This makes sense. Nah, this... Is he better than Sunburn still? Yeah, I guess, because it does more damage than Sunburn. It doesn't do more damage than Sonic Boom. And that's all I really care about. It doesn't do damage. Now, I actually kind of like Wrecking Ball in this game. I swear they made the tongue attack do way more damage. It has a lot of range, but it's still single target despite the fact that the effect makes it look like it's not. It's kind of weird. The secondary attack path does a lot of damage, but it still takes too long to start up, and you're not invincible during that startup. The Wow Pow, I'm still not entirely sure what it does. I think it just makes the secondary attack do more damage. But the good news is that the secondary attack can be jump cancelled, so if you don't want to commit to it, you can just jump out of it. The tertiary attack is still useless though, but I mean, that's just kind of happens sometimes. Overall, I don't think he's the worst Magic Skylander anymore. Also, to the guy who said I deserve to burn in hell for putting Wrecking Ball in D tier, I hope you're happy. Actually, he's probably... Yeah, probably right here. Yeah, we'll go right here. I hope you're happy.
I hear Boomer. Boomer sneaking around. Careful now. Boomer, step slow, y'all. Boomer around.
The primary attack path is still really good, does a lot of damage, and the spread is also really good. Kind of the same thing with the Zook, except it's a lob instead of a forward-moving projectile. The secondary attack path is also pretty good. The stunning is nice, but obviously it doesn't work against every enemy. Also, a weird thing I noticed with Boomer is that when you try to do the secondary attack, sometimes you'll just accidentally do the charge attack, which it's a good attack, but sometimes you don't want to do it since it leaves you so open. The Soul Gem is kind of weird since now the bombs actually have like rolling physics, so it's kind of a little more awkward to kick them around, but the tertiary attack is actually still pretty strong. And the primary attack path lets you have 6 of them, which is ludicrous. We're all pretty solid. Let's see, probably right here, because yeah, it's just like range is like his only problem. Actually, yeah, probably below Camo then. Drill Sergeant. The primary attack path is still kind of clunky because you have to reload the drills, but it has good damage at least. Although the secondary attack path has actually been heavily buffed. Now it hits more than once, and the laser upgrade works great with the Wow Pow. Somebody commented on the last ranking that the Wow Pow gives you this upgrade. I'll have to check the footage side by side, but I feel like it either does it in only Giants or it just doesn't in general, and it just kind of gives the illusion that it does. Also, just like Warnado, he has a Soul Gem that gives him armor, which again helps a lot in Nightmare mode. Probably, yeah, we'll put him at the bottom of B for now. Drobot. Oh, as if this was even going to be a question. Now, unbelievably, Drobot actually got buffed in this game. Like, yeah, the B path is still worthless, but Afterburner actually got a huge buff to damage and knocks back enemies, which is really nice if you're trying to get away. The Series 2 Wow Pow is also still really bad, but I mean, the primary attack path is all you need. You can just hover around and shoot dudes, and I mean, that's all you really have to do. He's so simple. In fact, actually, yeah, he's probably... Is he better? Oh, no, he's not better than Whirlwind. Not better than Whirlwind because she stuns enemies and that is still insane, but he is still pretty good. Trigger happy. Now, both of his upgrade paths are actually still pretty good. The primary attack path is just worse than Drobot's, and the secondary attack just isn't as useful because, again, lobs aren't exactly required anymore. Although the good thing is that the tertiary attack can actually be jump canceled now, which makes the Series 2 Wow Pow way better. But the Series 3 Wow Pow is just awful. Don't even bother with it. Also, the primary charge attack is actually pretty good. Even with 1 level of charge, it does ridiculous amounts of damage. And bouncing bullets is still really fun to play around with. So I'm gonna put him... No, probably not better than Zook. He still has a little health issue. So Chop Chop actually received a number of changes as well. Sort of similar to Terrafin, his primary attack just kind of feels slower, and I don't know if it hits multiple enemies like it used to anymore, but it still does a lot of damage and it's still pretty solid. The secondary attack path is also still really good because it does a bunch of damage, although you kind of still have to go down the Series 2 Wow Pow if you're going to go down the secondary attack path. Blocking damage is just useful in general, and the counterattack is really strong, so I wouldn't even discount the secondary attack path even if you don't have the Series 2 one. The tertiary attack also just does way more damage now, but it only hits once instead of it being a multi-hit. Obviously, though, you're here for the dual sword mode. Now, when I was first playing this game, I actually thought that it was going to be like a mode that you could go into and you just kind of stay in it with like a meter or something. But no, it's actually just a charge attack. It charges up pretty quick and you can hold it for basically as long as you want. Basically, the longer you hold the charge, the more slices you do. And the only problem is that you hold still like at the very start of the charge, but then after that you could start moving again. It does good damage, but I really do wish it was like an actual like sword mode. Overall though, still pretty solid. Probably worse than Ignitor though, since that tertiary attack does a lot of damage. Cynder. Now I really like Cynder, but I don't know what is wrong with her in this game. The primary attack is just kind of clunky. Like the hitbox feels wrong on it. It just doesn't hit as wide of an area as it looks like it does. Although the secondary attack path is actually pretty good, since the ghosts actually slow enemies, which is very useful. The Series 2 Wow Pow is also very spammable and stuns enemies now, which is really good. Overall though, she's not that bad. Probably not A tier though. Probably not better than Lightning Rod. So yeah, I think this is perfectly accurate. Because like, of course, if an enemy can't get stunned, then they're kind of in deep trouble. Now I think Ghost Roaster also got buffed in this game, because I think the primary attack does more damage. I'm not entirely sure about that. The tertiary attack path is also just like okay. I think if it did damage while you were in the form, it'd be way better. But as it stands, it's just like not that amazing. But the secondary attack path actually got another buff. is now it launches enemies and heals for a ton of HP when you eat a ghost. Also, it hits more than once while you're in the form. So honestly, pretty solid. Yeah, probably, yeah, same tier as him, just probably a little better. All right, Hex, unfortunately, they killed her friend, dude. Remember how I said that the Series 2 Wow Pow did like 400 damage? Well, now it only does like 80 in this game. And the secondary attack just takes way too long to charge. Even if you're on the secondary attack path, it just takes way too long to charge that thing up. Luckily, the primary attack is really spammable and has good range. So overall, she's okay. She's definitely not as good as she was at Giants. Giants was definitely her peak. Yeah, kind of like the same thing as Eruptor, actually. Probably worse, though, just because she's too slow and kind of frail. Now, Gill Grunt is actually really interesting, because he has what I like to call a skill check. Although it's not like an in-game skill check, it's an in-real-life skill check. Basically, in order to optimize his secondary attack path, basically you gotta hold the controller with one arm and then get like a pseudo Monster Hunter claw thing going. I don't know, it's fucking stupid. Because yes, while you're holding the secondary attack, you can really mash the hell out of the primary attack button. So yeah, it does a lot of damage, but I mean, it's kind of annoying to do. So if you don't really like having to switch the way you play, then maybe secondary attack path for Gill Grunt isn't the way to go. Instead, you should just go for the primary attack path where you're just Flameslinger, but better. I think it does more damage, but I think the spread is worse since it spreads out farther. Anchor Shot is still really bad, though. The Series 2 Wow Pow is bad, and I swear these hitboxes for the Anchor Shots are just terrible. The Series 3 Wow Pow is not as terrible. It kind of has the same problems as Eruptor's, where it kind of shoots at a weird arc, but since it vacuums enemies in, it's not as bad. And, I mean, his primary attack path is still really strong and spammable, so overall pretty good. Actually, yeah, probably definitely better than Flameslinger. Alright, so Slam Bam has the exact same problem as Terrafin, where like it just feels like they nerfed his attack speed. What also did the same thing they did with Chop Chop, where his punches just don't target like more than one enemy for some reason, even if it looks like it does. The combos at least do a lot of damage. The secondary attack path is like weirdly inconsistent. It doesn't freeze enemies all the time, and doesn't even like work on some enemies, obviously. The Soul Gem has actually been buffed to increase speed in water elemental zones, which actually makes sense because he's a water elemental Skylander. And also they buffed the Series 2 Wow Pow to be stronger, which is really nice for him. Although they definitely did him dirty with that portrait. Ayo! Overall, I'd say he didn't get hit as bad as Terrafin, but he still got hit hard enough that I'm not going to put him anywhere close to the top. Now, Wham Shell has like the same case as Warnado, where he has a light core for some reason, but no actual like base figure. Now for him, the secondary attack path is just not that good. Just go down the primary attack path, and only so you can spam the tertiary attack, because it stuns enemies and does an insane amount of damage. Yeah, probably, yeah, same thing with these three. These things all have the same thing, where you they just get up close and spam. Although, except I think his is probably stronger. So, but he's slow. Because his affects like a wave in front of him, while these two have it like in front, but his also does more damage. I think, yeah, actually probably this makes sense, yeah. Zap, like the other electric-based Skylanders, has gotten a buff to where now his electric slime stuns enemies. Now you'd think this would make the secondary attack path better, but it really doesn't. Why would you even go down the secondary attack path? Just go down the primary attack path and just electrify the damned slime yourself. The Series 2 Wow Pow also definitely got buffed. It now launches enemies and does a pretty good amount of damage. It does obviously leave you open, but hey, I've said that about like half the Skylanders so far. It's basically Bash's Wow Pow, but I think it does less damage. And it's also attached to a worse move. So, overall though, I'd still say he's pretty solid. Yeah, Camo. Yeah, definitely Camo. Jet-Vac. Now, he's actually pretty good. His primary attack path is good. It pierces enemies and does decent damage. Yeah, so it's really spammable. The secondary attack path does a lot of damage. And also the corkscrew attack can launch enemies and also does good damage, which is nice. The biggest problem with the secondary attack path is that you're literally sucking enemies closer to you. So you either have to wait until they're open or you just get hit, which does kind of suck. Also, I swear they nerfed the range on the collection aspect of the vacuum. Like, I don't know what happened. Trying to actually suck in, like, money just doesn't work as well as it does in Giants. In Series 3, Wow Pow is also good. You charge your primary attack button, and you just do a big air blast that does good damage. At least it charges quickly, which is nice. A tier? Yeah. Is he not? Yeah, he's not that good. Swarm. Now, I haven't gotten a chance to talk about it, but the Giants in this game suck. Alright, so remember how in the last tier list I talked about how the giants are just like big moving targets? Yeah, well imagine that, but like times it by 12 since enemies also just have like way more HP, so it's harder to deal with them now. Swarm at least gets out easy because he has a good projectile, and the primary attack is really good since it launches. Also, I swear they buffed the primary attack, so now it hits twice now on the way in instead of once. So I actually managed to try out the tertiary attack path in this game, and it's bad. It's really bad. I'm gonna be honest, it's bad. But I still think Swarm is actually probably still the best of the giants. The homing projectiles is really good on the primary attack path, and also just, the primary attack is just good in general. And so is the Soul Gem. Probably... Yeah, because it doesn't do that much damage, but it still is good. I think... Right up here with Jet-Vac? Yeah. Yeah, we'll go with this. This does feel kind of weird looking, but whatever. Now, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I actually kind of like Crusher in this game. Like, he was the worst of the Giants, in my opinion, in Giants, but now I think I don't know if they changed how his tertiary attack works, or if he was just always invisible, but whenever you do it, enemies just, like, forget you're there. And I don't know if that was the case in Giants, but it is in this game, and it's just, it makes him way better. Also, whenever you do the tertiary attack and then press the secondary attack button, that attack launches enemies, which is really nice. The primary attack path is actually pretty bad. It's a little too slow. It does a lot of damage, obviously, but, I mean, you're still like a sitting duck whenever you try to use it, and it's weirdly inconsistent trying to hit. The secondary attack also just isn't that great, since only one hit knocks enemies out of stun, so you kind of have to keep upping it, which isn't great. But overall, I actually kind of liked Crusher in this game, which is kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. He might actually be here. I can't believe this. Alright, Flashwing is very strong. Kind of like, basically just like an Earth Drobot, if I'm being honest. The secondary attack path is good. It reflects projectiles, which is a really nice feature. It does really good damage as well with like the, when you press the primary attack button while in the secondary attack. But since it takes a little bit of time between each of your secondary attacks, it's not amazing. The primary attack path is definitely where it's at. First of all, it heals you, which is really good, and does a lot of damage if there's any walls nearby. And of course, the primary attack is also just easily spammable, and does pretty good damage for how fast it fires. The tertiary attack also isn't bad. It does a lot of damage and hits behind you, which is really nice when you're trying to run away. And the Soul Gem also isn't terrible. It does take a little while to start up, but it does good damage. And I think it knocks back some enemies, which is pretty good. In fact, actually, probably, yeah. So yeah, we'll go with this. I think this is actually more accurate. Now, Hot Dog is definitely one of the Skylanders of all time. Both of his paths are pretty decent. The secondary attack path does a lot of damage, which is nice and goes pretty far. Although the primary attack path also isn't terrible. The tertiary attack does a lot of damage, and of course comboed with the Soul Gem, it's pretty decent. Along with that, if you're also down the primary attack path, that also means you can hold it and kind of just troll enemies from above. But the Wow Pow itself that he got in this game just isn't that great, I'm gonna be honest. It's yet another charge attack, but it doesn't even really do that much damage. Definitely one of the Skylanders of all time. Yeah. No, yeah, this makes sense. Actually, this makes sense, actually. Man, I'm telling you, the Giants crew was really cooking with the fucking names for the Skylanders. Hot Dog, Hot Head. Wow. Big brain. The tertiary attack path is still really bad. Enemies just aren't stunned long enough, and you're standing still for way too long for how pitiful the damage really is. But the primary attack is really strong. Big damage and good damage over time. The Soul Gem is also good since it increases your speed and also launches enemies, which is really nice. Probably, kind of on the same level as Boomer, actually, yeah. Overall, I'd say he's actually not that bad. I think his obvious biggest problem is that he's just too big. But since you can jump, you can actually get away from at least a decent amount of things. Shroom Boom is pretty bad, I'm gonna be honest. Both the paths are bad. The secondary attack path is slightly worse, since you have to let the enemies get close to you. Although the tertiary attack path is better simply because it's spammable and you can move around a bunch. But since it doesn't really do that much damage, it's still not that great. The Soul Gem is somehow weaker than your charged primary and also takes longer, which is kind of just insane. Like, yeah, I know you can hold down the self slingshot to make it do more damage, but like, you're so open for that. Why would you want to do that? Is he D tier? I almost want to say he is, but since he can kind of kite enemies around, I'd actually say he's not the worst. He's not the worst because they ruined Tree Rex, man. They killed him. I can't believe it. The charged primary attack does a lot of damage, but it has way less range in this game, I think. The charged tertiary attack does less damage, and doesn't even turn enemies into plants, and doesn't lock on either. The only good thing about him is that the secondary attack path is better now because the elbow charge launches. The soul gem is also pretty good for him, since it just helps him get around some of the smaller enemies. But overall, they kind of murdered my boy. I gotta be honest. Actually, you know what? Same level as Ghost Roaster, because they basically do the same thing. They spam the secondary attack and launch enemies. That's basically what they do now. Something I also forgot to mention about the Giants is that during the story mode, there's like various chests that Giants can open. I'm not really sure what they're here for, since they're not part of 100% completion. So I guess they're really only here because, like, I guess if you didn't upgrade a Giant when you were playing and started playing Swap Force, that's like the only thing I can really think of. Something not really worth mentioning because I literally forgot about it, obviously. But, I mean, the Giants at least have a use in this game. They didn't forget about them. Ninjini, she's still solid, I guess. The A-Path is, like, not that special, honestly. And the charged primary attack is decent. It launches enemies and does a good amount of damage, but you have to stand still to do it. You can at least choose what direction you shoot it in, but it's still not that great. A tertiary attack is still okay. It's just good for when you're trying to get in. Although I still think the secondary attack path is the best of the paths. The bottle isn't nearly as durable as it was before since they changed the way armor works. The soul gem also suffers the same fate as like all the other stunning attacks, but it also does damage now, which I think it didn't do in Giants. But it's still very spammable. Overall, I'd say she's still pretty solid. A pretty good pick. Yeah, just probably like same level as Swarm, honestly, except she's just slower, which kind of I just don't like. That's like the one problem I have with her. Now Pop Fizz is actually interesting because they also nerfed him in this game. The secondary attack is just slower now. Like the attack speed is just so much worse in this game. I think it's because it was probably really easily spammable in the last game, so they're like, all the devs are like, oh, we can't have this. I think unironically its best use is drinking the green potion for like the tertiary attack rush, since that does good damage and stuns enemies. The primary attack path is also good since it's a projectile, but it's not as spammable since you kind of want to at least try to get the different potion effects, but it's just, the tertiary attack is just weirdly inconsistent. You have to wait for the full thing to go. Also, his Wow Pow is just terrible. The biggest problem is obviously the potions just die in one hit, but even then, they just don't do any damage. I'm not sure why you'd ever want to go down that path. Okay, the more I'm looking at this tier list, this feels wrong. I'm looking at this tier list a little more. I think you need to go up, at least a little bit. Yeah, we'll put you here. I just don't, I don't like him. I don't like him. You know what? Top of C. Yeah, we'll go top of C for you. Now in Giants, I'd actually say that it bounced through his secondary attack path was probably better than his primary attack path. However, now the rockets are just way worse because if you jump while you fire, even if they've already been fully fired, it still cancels the rocket entirely. So that's not great, and obviously holding still isn't really an option. The A-Path is still solid though, and holding the primary attack button actually fires faster in this game, whereas in Giants if you mashed, you were definitely faster. Tertiary attack is still okay, does good damage at least, and the soul gem is still pretty alright. Probably still better than Crusher. I don't know though, I feel like I had more fun with Crusher, fucked up as it is. Fucked up, isn't it? Yeah, we'll go with this. This seems right. Alright, Sprocket is just terrible. I'm gonna be honest. I still hate this character so much. The primary attack path is still the better one because of the mines, but the secondary attack path is just god-awful. When you're building a sentry, it just takes forever. And the Wow Pow is just terrible. But she does have one niche use that I think actually puts her above Terrafin. And it's that she can one-shot Glumshanks. The setup is really weird and I don't even know how to do it, but I've seen a lot of people do it. So she has one good use, and that's it. Still terrible, and I don't like her. Like, even the primary attack is like too slow. I just don't understand what they were thinking with this character. Even like the Wow Pow is so bad because you have to build the tank, get in the tank, not die somehow, and also hold the secondary attack button for an absurd amount of time just to do not even that much damage, if I'm being honest. Oh, and it's also really annoying to aim it. Jeez, why even do this? Now, unfortunately, Eye-Brawl also got hit with a nerf, but kind of a weird one. The primary attack just doesn't take you as far, so it's not like a funny haha movement option that you could use now. And also, I think it's just slower to attack anyway. The combos are good damage, But that's really about it. The primary attack path is just better simply because it outputs more damage. The secondary attack path is just way worse since it didn't get an attack buff. So it's just not that strong. The Eye Slam at least does good damage, and I think it launches enemies if I remember correctly. But I mean, that's about it. The tertiary attack is still just okay, I guess. Overall though, I think he somehow got even worse. Probably better than Stump Smash, at least. Yeah, this makes sense. Kind of sucks because he's really cool, but whatever. Fright Rider. Oh, all the same things still apply. His primary attack path is still not good. The combos leave you way too open other than the primary, tertiary one. And the Soul Gem isn't terrible, but it still leaves you a little too open. The secondary attack path is just better. It's low damage, but the Roundhouse is very spammable and just kind of stun locks enemies. Does that save him from D tier though? It honestly does, but not by much. Yeah, because the Roundhouse, the Roundhouse is just like way better than what I was expecting. It exceeded my very, very low expectations, if I'm being honest. Chill. Now, unfortunately, her secondary attack path is still like not amazing. Its damage is okay, but its freezing is kind of weirdly inconsistent. The Wow Pow just like takes way too long to charge, and for how much damage it does, it's just not that great. The shield, once again with Chop Chop, blocking damage is nice, but she can't reflect it, so she's just stuck blocking. Just go down the primary attack path. It's very spammable, it has a lot of range, it shoots in a nice arc in front of her. Overall, I don't know why you would ever not go down the primary attack path. The Soul Gem is still too slow to charge up, I'm gonna be honest. If you could at least charge it while moving, it'd be nice, but you can't, so... okay, who else has Spammy Projectile? You have Spammy Projectile. You need something more than just a Spammy Projectile to be good. You know what I mean? Now, Thumpback is still probably the worst of the Giants. The secondary attack path is good because the tertiary attack launches enemies, but it's way too slow to start up. The A path has good range, but the combos are way too slow, and they really wanted you to use that one combo, but it's just not that good. It takes way too long to pull the anchor. The Soul Gem is actually still okay. Is he D tier? I'm gonna say yes, actually. The Water Vomit is at least like a decent projectile, but I mean, it has like basically all the problems. You have to stand still, and you can't move, and it doesn't even do that much damage. I think if you could get health off of eating the enemies, I think that would make him at least a little better. It might kick him out of D tier, but for now, the way I see it, he's just very bad. So we're finally onto the Swap Force cast, and let me tell you, we got some bangers coming up. Starting off with the Boom Jet, both of his top paths are pretty good. His tertiary attack synergizes really well with his Soul Gem, because when he's low on HP, he gets food so he can heal himself past the 2-shot threshold. But I really like the football. Have you seen my football? But the secondary attack path has one option. Just go down the missiles. Not only are the missiles just a better projectile, if you spam the dash, it actually just does crazy damage and launches. The Fog just cannot compete with this. If I had to choose which one is better, I'd say Jet is definitely better simply because of how spammable that secondary attack is on the missile path. It might actually put him into S tier. I'm gonna be honest. I didn't really understand the hype behind it, but now I think I kind of get it. Because 150 damage is nothing to sneeze at. Is he the best? No, he's not the best simply because the top half just... He's not the best simply because the top half just isn't that great. I'm still letting my bias get in the way, I feel. I feel like my bias is getting in the way here. I really think that secondary attack spam is really good, but I feel like it'd also get way annoying at times. And also, since you have to get up close and it doesn't work on every enemy type in the game. That's probably... I'm literally just justifying it myself to not put him at the top, I'm gonna be honest. He's a little too goofy for my liking, but he's still really strong. And the football. I like the football. Now, frankly, I think I should put Free Ranger in D tier simply because of his corny-ass voice lines. But he's actually, like, really strong, so that would be really stupid of me. The primary attack path is actually okay. The charge attack just takes way too long to start up. I've noticed there was a bit of a trend with all the swappers that I think they just ran out of upgrade ideas, so it's just like, here's a charge attack, now it does more damage, and that's basically all the path upgrades. Because really all you need is like the base upgrades and maybe the Soul Gem for him. Because every third hit with the primary attack shoots out a gust of wind, and that does quite a bit of damage. At least with the tertiary attack path, the charge is better because you can move and also it's a ranged attack. I think at least for Free Ranger, all of his stuff synergizes really well together. Like both the B pads are okay, the Lightning Strike is clearly the better one, but it also launches enemies whenever you're near them, which is really good to have. And also, since you can nickname Skylanders, and each half of a swapper is nicknamed separately, you can keep the top half the same, but the nickname on the bottom half can be insert political talking point here. See, personally, I'm a bit of a free bird guy myself.
We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu. That's right. We're going back in time to the first Thanksgiving to get turkeys off the menu.
Probably, yeah, right up here with all these guys. Popthorn. Now, I love this little guy. I'm almost tempted to put Popthorn into S tier simply because of the Sky Diamond exploit with the training dummies, but I really don't want to count that too much towards him. Even without the exploit, he's still pretty solid as a Skylander. Both paths are pretty good. I think the secondary attack path is slightly better just because the air shotguns out and does pretty good damage. Although so does the tertiary attack path. Its only problem is that obviously you have to get in close, but it launches enemies and does good damage. So it's a bit of a trade-off that you have to go for. He's also probably the most unique Skylander, since he's basically two Skylanders in one with both the puffed and the popped versions. I really like him a lot. Honestly, the exploit might put him... Like, the exploit puts him, like, right here for me, honestly. Do I count the exploit towards him? Because he's the only one that can really do it effectively. Honestly, I think just because of the exploit, yeah, I think he deserves to be up here. I'm gonna be honest. If you want to have a really easy time, just get him, get another controller, and just upgrade all of your Skylanders as soon as you get to the first level. Man, Air Element had some fucking bangers this game. Scratch is also really good. Both paths pretty solid. High crit chance and high damage, or just slowing enemies and having high speed is really good. Normally melee Skylanders would be ranked pretty low, but since the secondary attack launches enemies very easily and is also a projectile, it works really well. Also, both of the charge primary attacks are really good. I like the Buzzsaw slightly more just because it's more satisfying to land, but the Whirlwind is also still pretty good. Her only problem is that the tertiary attack is okay, but it does launch, which is nice. The Soul Gem is also, it's okay. It's a little situational for my liking, although it does help in story mode specifically, because then whenever you're done with an encounter, you can just break a couple barrels and heal up. Overall, though, I'd say she's pretty solid. Probably not better, yeah, probably not better than Trigger Happy. Alright. The moment you've all been waiting for. Doomstone. Ugh. Simply put, the tertiary attack is just not that good. It's nice to turn the enemies into stone, but don't go down the tertiary attack path. It's just not that worth it. The entire bottom half of him is just god-awful. Like, I get what they were going for, but I mean, it's just not that good. The primary attack path at least does good damage, and you can at least move around while you're charging up the attack. But I mean, ugh. He's the worst of the swap zones, and he's just not that strong. At least top of D tier. It's kind of like a meme. I was half tempted to put him in C tier simply because he's not that bad technically, but I mean, he's just so exploitable. The primary attack just isn't good enough, and neither is the charge primary attack. Now, Rubble Rouser is actually really strong. Tertiary attack, very strong, does a lot of damage, staggers enemies, hits like 1 billion times a second. The primary attack path, though, is really bad, though. You never want to throw the hammer. It's just not that good. The secondary attack path with the boulder lobbing is pretty good. Enemies can't hit you while you're underground, so they're kind of just stuck sitting there like, oh, now what do we do? And the Soul Gem is really strong. The only problem with the secondary attack is that you're slightly vulnerable when you're getting out of the ground, but since enemies aren't like gonna even try to attack you while you're underground, you're probably gonna be safe. And the rock guys are like, they're cute, but that's about it. Overall, though, I'd say he's pretty solid. Same level as Nagini. Yeah, we'll go with that. Now, Scorp, also very good. The primary attack path is okay. Does good damage, but the lob arc is kind of awkward, and the charge primary is just pretty bad. But the B path is really good. It's a way better projectile. It does a lot of damage, and the damage over time from the poison is really good. Also, the tertiary attack is really good for speed, which is nice. Overall, pretty solid. Here? Yeah, we'll go right here. Slobber Tooth. Aside from, unfortunately, probably being one of the most forgettable Skylanders, he's actually not that bad. Slam does a lot of damage, has good AoE, and of course, when you're moving, it also becomes a projectile, which is really nice. I think the secondary attack path is just better, because you can shoot enemies off cliffs and also heal. And of course, the primary attack is just really spammable. Same level as Ghost Roaster, honestly. I think this is a happy medium. No, this... yeah, this is a happy medium. I don't know where to put him. Just, you know what? Yeah, right next to Hot Dog feels right. Just one of the Skylanders of all time. Good old Blast Zone. Now, Blast Zone, one of the starter pack Skylanders, and they always seem to do this, where they make the starter pack Skylanders really good, because I really like Blast Zone a lot. Both of his attack paths are pretty good. The tertiary attack boosting the damage of the primary attack on the primary attack path is really good. His only problem is that the sticky bomb isn't really that good. It's just not that consistent. It doesn't even do that much damage. Also, the primary attack arc is just kind of awkward. The tertiary attack path is actually really strong. Like, the tertiary attack itself isn't that strong. But, like I said with Flameslinger, I hope you like making circles, because that's all you're going to be doing. Because that shit does a lot of damage and launches enemies. Also, both the secondary attack paths are good. The projectile one, I think, is slightly better, just because it has better range. The force field is okay, I guess. I think if you're going to go down one path, the force field path with the tertiary attack path is probably better, since you're probably going to be up in enemies' faces all the time anyway. But overall, I'd say he's pretty solid. Also, the soul gem for him is really good. Specifically, the top half soul gem. I'm kind of debating between the... I don't think he's better than Scratch, but I think... Is he better than Free Ranger? Fuck it. I like... Blast Zone is going above Free Ranger simply because I like Blast Zone's design better. It's as simple as that, really. Firecracken. Should put you in D tier for being ugly, stupid, and ugly. But he's actually pretty strong. Both have synergized pretty well together. The primary attack path is really strong, does a lot of damage, and it's not really that committal. It also launches enemies. The tertiary attack path is not that great. It's high committal, low damage. The secondary attack top path specifically is really good because of the speed increase that you get when you're about to launch the big one, which is also really strong. The tail whip also kind of acts like a certain other Skylander, which I'll talk about when we get to him. But it's still pretty good since it knocks enemies back. Overall, I actually kind of like him. Him at level 1 is really bad, but I mean, who isn't really bad at level 1, if we're being honest? You know, actually probably an A tier. Now, I like Frino. He's just a little guy, but he's a little angry, you know, he's got a big temper, you know, that's never been done before. Little guy, big temper? Yeah, I'd be mad too if I was that short. A tertiary attack path it's just okay. Usually you end up relying on punches whenever you actually get at range, but it is a great movement option when you're heated up. The secondary attack is just mostly utility, except when you're on the primary attack path where you get the force field it generates. The primary attack is a little weak, but it does hit pretty fast, so that's not too big of an issue. The charge primary attack is just not that good. It just takes away way too much heat for how little damage it does. But overall, I still really like him a lot. Probably worse than... No. This... I keep changing Slobber Tooth's placement. It's just wrong. So on one of my Skylander ranking videos, somebody commented, and I can't fucking find it for the life of me, but somebody commented that, like, if you better put it Smolder Dash in S tier, or else I'm gonna kill you. I don't think those were the exact words, but I am paraphrasing here a little. And, well, I gotta be honest, he was right. She is very strong, and I was not expecting this at all. The primary attack path is solid. It does a lot of damage and kind of lets you avoid damage, but the secondary attack path is definitely where it's at. With the Eclipse Fireballs that do a bunch of damage, move fast, and launch enemies, it's pretty good. The tertiary attack is also just insane. You get increased damage and speed while you're in the form, get new attacks, get a jumping attack, and its only drawback is that you have to wait like 5 seconds before you can use it again. Yeah, this character is actually insane. I gotta be honest. I was not expecting it, but you know what? I love her. She's very strong. Oh look, it's another unexpected top tier. Yeah, Bumble Blast is really fucking good, and I don't even know how... I don't know if y'all been sleeping on Bumble Blast, but don't. Both of his paths are really good. The primary attack path is better for spam. The charging primary attack is good because you can still move while charging, and it also launches enemies. His only, like, main drawback is that he's a little slow, but that hardly matters when you're just walking away from enemies anyway. And the secondary attack path isn't as bad as you probably might expect. The charge secondary attack is pretty similar to the charge primary attack, only it does a little more damage but unleashes bees. And no matter what path you go down, the secondary attack path pairs really well with the primary attack because the bees will home in on any enemy that has the honey on them. The only real problem is, of course, that the tertiary attack is basically useless, but I mean, who cares? Also, your soul gem is basically just tree rexes, but better. Yeah, really strong, very spammable, could probably help you win a number of boss fights. Grilla Drilla. The tertiary attack path actually isn't that bad, but I mean, why would you ever do that when you have the primary attack path? The third attack, doing more damage, just adds up quicker with the drills. Although, if you have to use Grilla Drilla, drop the Drilla and give him, like, anything else, because it's just not that good. Both the attacks are bad. The coconuts, I guess, are slightly better, but it's still not great. Just, seriously, if you're gonna use them, sub them out for anything. But I'd say, overall, pretty solid. See, the problem is I have to rate these two together, because if I was rating Drilla, he'd probably be in, like, C tier. But Grilla is probably, like, A tier, maybe S tier, because the primary attack is just that strong. So I'm gonna put, yeah, right where Rubble Rouser is, because they're kind of like the same deal here. Stink Bomb. The tertiary attack path, it's just not that good. The good thing about the tertiary attack is that it launches enemies, which is nice, so you can kind of just push enemies off the cliff, which is really funny sometimes. The charge tertiary attack is not that good. It takes way too long to charge up. At least it does good damage, but I mean, it's better since I have to hold still to do it. But the primary attack path is just way better, just because you can get the circle of shurikens around you. And it also charges pretty quickly. It also does good damage as well. Also, the primary attack is just good in general. On the secondary attack path side, the caltrops aren't really that great, but I mean, the bottom half isn't even really that good in general. The good thing is that you can at least go invisible, so if you need to get away from some enemies, then press B and you can probably get away. Overall, still pretty solid. Another spammy projectile character. It's just, you need something more than that, you know? Now, Zulu is actually really funny, because I'm pretty sure he's named after, like, one of the devs for Skylanders. I mean, and it kind of sucks for him, because Zulu is just, like, okay. Like, you could be named, like, something cool. Like, oh, that's right. These guys don't really have cool names. Well, I guess it could be worse. I will say that Zulu is actually still pretty good. The secondary attack path is okay. It comes in clutch when you're at low health, which, again, is really useful in Nightmare mode, since it would probably get you above the 2-shot threshold. But the problem is that the secondary attack just dies in one hit like every other summon in the game. But the tertiary attack path was way better than what I was expecting. It launches enemies, and you can also use the primary attack while you're on it. It leaves you a little open because you're slow, but since you're, like, you know, bucking all the time, enemies probably won't even get that close to you, unless they have, like, those stupid shields or whatever. The soul gem is okay. It leaves you a little slower, but I mean, it's still pretty solid. Also, you can jump cancel the tertiary attack, which is very important. So if you ever do run into an enemy with a shield, then you're probably going to be fine. Probably, yeah, right. Yeah, right here. Honestly, yeah. Dune Bug, I hate this guy. He is very bad. Probably one of my least favorite Skylanders in the whole game. Both the attack paths are just worthless. The charge attacks just take too long and aren't even that practical. The best one is at least the one that shoots, like, the secondary attack ball, since it stuns enemies. The secondary attack at least lets you group up enemies, but the biggest problem is that his damage output isn't good enough to capitalize on it. I feel like he's better probably for, like, multiplayer or something. But, I mean, I don't have friends, so I'm not going to bother testing this. And I don't like him anyway. Now, Hoot Loop is kind of just like Double Trouble, but a little worse. At least his primary attack path is. The Soul Gem is really good, though. He's just another spammy projectile character. The tertiary attack also, I think, is just a little better simply because it can actually, like, stun enemies. Obviously, it doesn't work on certain enemies, but hey, it works on some of them. Also, the bottom half just isn't really that great. It's decent for movement. If you had to pick one path, I'd go for the one that you can, like, jump cancel out of, because that one's pretty solid. But otherwise, I mean, the Hoot part is pretty good. Yeah, kind of the same level as Blast Zone here. Now, Star Strike is one of my favorites from this whole patch. The tertiary attack path is not that good, but that doesn't really matter when the primary attack path is just so good. And this character has, like, a skill ceiling to it. She's just really fun to use. Very spammy projectiles and very powerful if you're good enough at the game. The only problem is that the reflecting ball can be kind of inconsistent on what it hits, but overall, I'd say she's really good. Also, the secondary attack can reflect projectiles, which is, as I've already mentioned with Flashwing, is really good. I think she's going to hold down A tier. I don't know if she's good enough. You know what? Nah, she's got to go in S. Because she does just an insane amount of damage. Also, she's got a sick design. Like, how are you going to hate? Now, Trap Shadow, he's just kind of meh. He's got kind of a weird voice, which puts me off a little. But we're not ranking them based off that, so I can't really fault him for that. The Soul Gem is actually like a nice movement option, and the primary attack is pretty good. Although most of the damage comes from the lunge, so instead of just mashing the primary attack button, you can instead play a little rhythm game, so you can just keep doing the lunge over and over. I think the biggest problem is that the traps are just kind of weird. They're fun, but you can only have one on the field at a time, which kind of sucks. The secondary attack kick it's good. Prowling is fun since it turns you invisible. Kind of the same thing as Stink Bomb, except I think it's just a little worse. Yeah, we'll put him here. Now I gotta be honest, Tech was cooking this game too. Air and Tech, who were both cooking like crazy. Except for Countdown. Both paths are just kind of eh. The tertiary attack path is good because the mini bombs like launch enemies, but they're kind of slow to start up, and it takes too much time in between them. Because you can have 4 on the field at a time, but really it's 2 because the first 2 will just kill themselves before you can get another one on the field. The primary attack path is good because the charging is pretty quick and it does a good amount of damage. Also, the spread is really nice for it on the primary attack path. The only problem is that the secondary attack is just not that great, and also the Soul Gem is just really bad. It takes way too long to charge up the self-destruct, and it doesn't even really do that much damage. Where's all the other spammy projectile characters? Yeah, right here. We'll put them there. Now, Magna Charge. Magna Charge is broken for one reason. He can throw enemies off cliffs. And if you don't know this, I kind of like that because it means that you can just bypass all the enemies' massive HP pools. I don't know why they always make tech Skylanders with like super spammy primary attacks, but they always do it. Just go down the primary attack path anyway. Even though it's the tertiary attack that you can carry enemies off the field with, you don't have to invest in that path in order to make it happen. You can just do it from the get-go. And if you want a more powerful primary attack, then go down the primary attack path. And the bottom half isn't even that bad, since it basically does the same thing, and also just makes you go faster, which I always like. So, overall, I think Magna Charge is really good. Spyro is yet another one of my favorites. I wasn't expecting to like him that much, but oh my god, he is just so fun to play. And he's really good. Both primary attack paths are really good. The stun grenade is good for crowd control, and the web is good for more boss damage. But both the bottom half paths are really good as well. I think Pulse Bomb is just slightly better since you're not holding still for as long, but the Soul Gem is definitely where it's at, on both halves too. Since you get more of your primary attack with the Soul Gem on the top, and then the bottom half you get the Space Laser, which is just so funny. Also, his tertiary attack is really good. It shows enemy health bar and also boosts the damage you do, along with the fact that you can siphon enemy health. Yeah, he's really good for Nightmare Mode. In fact, I think... Enemies off clip. Yeah, this seems right. It's another one of my favorites. Now, I really love Wind Up, and I don't make it a secret. And is he good? Hell yeah, he's good. The path with the symbols is pretty good, and so is the projectiles. But I think the bottom path with the boxing glove is better, just because it does more damage over a period of time. And also, he's one of the only characters that can attack while jumping. His tertiary attack is also kind of weird. It launches enemies, though, which is really nice. And also, he does more damage to launch enemies, which is also really nice. And his Soul Gem is probably the best in the game. It increases his speed and also allows him to wind up while moving, which is just really good. Do I put him in S tier, though? To be honest, he's basically just Tech Stealth Elf. So I'm going to put him, yeah, right here. Love Wind Up. Grim Creeper. Oh, man. He's pretty solid as well. Unfortunately, his secondary attack path just is not that good. The healing just isn't enough to be worth it, and the attack itself just isn't great. But the tertiary attack path is really good, as it just like stun locks enemies forever. Also, just comboing this dude is super fun. One of the most satisfying Skylanders, I think, in the whole series. In fact, I'm gonna put him very similar to Firecracken, actually. In fact, I think I like him a little more. In fact, I think I like him a little more. In fact, yeah, these two are like on the same level for me because they're like melee Skylanders with like unique utility that can keep them out of danger. So I think, yeah, this makes sense to me. That's just as interesting. He's a ranged Skylander disguised as a melee Skylander because of how far his punches go. The primary attack path is okay. The money gained isn't really useful at the point of the game that you get it, but the uppercutting enemies is still really fun. It also pairs really well with the slow that you get from the bottom path Soul Gem. And I think the tertiary attack path is actually just slightly better because it pairs better with the Soul Gem on the top half. It also does good damage over time, along with getting you out of the two-shot threshold. But we don't really care about that. The bottom half is definitely the best in the whole game because you get extra lives, and that's broken. Like, black holes are fine, yeah, but 2 extra lives on Nightmare mode is kind of insane. Yeah, we're actually gonna put him down here. The biggest problem, obviously, is that he's sort of stapled to the... is that Night Shift is unfortunately stapled to the top half, but I mean, he's still pretty good. So, hey, you can't really go too wrong with him. Actually, gonna move Star Strike up one. These two are basically here for utility purposes. Oh, jeez. Damn, I guess Undead was also cooking this game. Because next up we have Rattle Shake. Both of his top paths are pretty good. Tertiary attack path is good, but I mean, the primary attack charge is just really quick. It poisons, it hits multiple enemies. It's just really good. Also, the Soul Gem is just broken on him. It absorbs a lot of damage, increases your speed and your crit rate. Also, his secondary attack is really good. It's a good projectile, and it also launches enemies that are near you. Also, with the charge secondary attack with the bones, it's just better. It does more damage, has a bigger area of effect. The jump attack is just kind of whack. His only problem is that his damage is kind of low. But I gotta be honest, he's also S tier. Yeah, right next to Spyro. He's probably another one of my favorites. And then finally, last but definitely not least, we have Rollerball. Both paths are pretty solid, though I'd say that the bottom path is just slightly better. The saws are a good projectile and a trap. If you hold the tertiary attack button, you get a really nice aura around you. Basically the same thing as Stink Bomb, except it's a little worse than his because it's like the ring is bigger and has less projectiles. But I mean, that doesn't really matter that much. You go down the top path if you want better movement as well as better defense. And the pure on attack is it's okay, I guess. It does good damage, but it's just not that worth it. The Soul Gem is a little weird on her. It basically creates like a tether that you can go in between enemies with. It's okay, I guess. I guess the best thing about her is that her secondary attack launches, which is really good. She has a lot of moves, okay? She's got a lot of moves. Now the question is, where do I put her? I definitely like her a lot. Yeah, I mean, her primary attack is really good. She's got a good projectile. She moves really fast. But most importantly, she's cute. So, I mean, can you really blame me? Freeze Blade is pretty good. Both his primary and tertiary attack paths are really strong. His tertiary attack path can freeze large groups of enemies and does pretty good amounts of damage. Also, just freezing enemies in general is really good. It's way more consistent than Slam Bams for some fucking reason. The primary attack path is also really good for crowd control, and the primary charge attack charges very quickly. Both of his secondary attack paths are fine. I think the ice path is just a little better since you don't really need the extra damage on the secondary attack when you do the... I don't even know what it is, like a shield? Like a thing in front of him. He's good. The only reason you're really going to use the bottom half is because it gets you a nice speed boost. But overall, I'd say that Freeze Blade is pretty good. Also, he's voiced by Billy West, who does Philip J. Fry, which is really cool.
Gah, this is too hard.
Okay, I gotta move some people around. I think I'm gonna do some last minute changes eventually. Punk Shock. Now this is one that I wasn't really expecting to like too much, but I actually ended up liking her a lot more than I thought. The primary attack path is fine. The charge is okay. Also, you get like a hurt AoE, so whenever you're near an enemy, it does damage. This is pretty good. It does decent damage, but it can kind of hurt you in specific challenges. Although I still managed to do it against the fruit challenge, so don't ask me how I did this. The tertiary attack is near useless. I'm gonna be honest. It's not that good. I think it launches, but I mean, that's about it. The Soul Gem is fine. It's jump cancelable at least, but I think it just takes too long to charge up, and you're standing still during the entire duration. But the secondary attack path is definitely where it's at. You get huge area denial and area control. You get massive stun because, again, you use lightning, so of course you stun. And the damage over time is really good. So, yeah. Shit. Oh, fuck. I didn't mean to do that. Doomstone, stay in Doomstone tier where you belong. You bastard. Yeah, we'll put her... Yeah, probably better than Grim Creeper, at least. Yeah, we'll put her here. This makes sense to me. Riptide. This one's kind of weird. Both of his upgrade paths are fine. It just kind of depends on what you like. Do you like the faster swordfish, or do you like the slower hammerhead shark? Personally, I think hammerhead is slightly better, but not by much. They're both not really that great, if I'm being honest. Your tertiary attack is strong, but it leaves you too open. The good news is that at least both charge attacks like launch enemies. I think I think that's part of the reason why I like the Hammerhead more, is because he makes a weird noise whenever you do the charge attack. Probably not going to save him too much, though. Yeah, we'll put him in C tier. Get it? Because he's a fish. We got to zoom out again. Not like it's going to matter, because our last Skylander is Washbuckler. The last of the starter pack Skylanders. I gotta say that both of his attack paths, once again, are pretty good. Sword path gets reduced damage whenever you hit an enemy with the bubbles, which is pretty good for Nightmare mode specifically. The tertiary attack charge move is pretty good. It does good damage, and also, of course, holding the enemies in the bubbles is really nice, so you can bubble an enemy and then move on to somebody else. And both B paths they're okay, I guess. The top secondary path is good for bosses, since you can kind of just sit there. The Ink Trail is just not that great, but I'm gonna be honest, if you're gonna use him, don't get the Soul Gem for the bottom path, since it actively makes his movement worse. And his charge primary attack is just okay. It does a lot of damage, but it just takes too long to charge up. At least the full version from the Soul Gem. The lesser version is just okay. Let's see. Yeah, probably same level as Grilla Drilla. Yeah, this seems right to me. Okay, let's go over the... Alright, I'm just gonna go through this real quick, make a couple adjustments. Oh, silly past me, thinking that those would be the final revisions you'd make. Pfft, not this time. Little did you know that he would just go through some incoherent babbling that he would never find agreeable. So this is future me. I've been editing this for like the past 2 weeks now. And you know, I've been going over the footage. I looked at it and I'm like, what the fuck was past me thinking? Why am I so wrong about everything? So yeah, I'm just gonna go through some of these and say, oh man, nah, that's not true at all. Okay, so first of all, yeah, he's the best in the game. Why can't I move you? Yeah, he's the best in the game. It's not even close. Like, the secondary attack is just, you can just spam it. It does 150 damage. It's broken. Like, I don't need to say it. You're still pretty good. You throwing enemies off cliffs. I'm gonna say, yeah, this is true, because you could just throw enemies off cliffs that you don't want to deal with. You need to go down a little lower, honestly. Drobot is he fell off. Simply put, he fell off. Bumble Blast also should probably go up. I think this Spyro is probably a little bit better than Rattle Shake. In fact, I think Rattle Shake should go a little lower. Smolder Dash. I kind of want to put Wind Up higher now. No, yeah, this makes sense. And then I'm actually gonna put Stealth Elf probably not better than Drobot. Star Strike is fine where she is right now. I'm actually gonna move Double Trouble down a tier. I don't think he's that good. These two have like game-breaking, stupid bullshit that only they can do. Bash is like on the verge of dropping to A tier, if I'm being honest. Star Strike. I really like Star Strike. But is she? See, I'm just doing incoherent babbling this time, except I'm a little louder, so I guess that means I'm a little more correct now. Because you can at least reflect projectiles, which is really good. You do a lot of damage. No, yeah, we're gonna keep you here. We're gonna keep you. Yeah, all these three staying here. Punk Shock's gotta go to S. I don't know what I was thinking. I was rewatching the footage, and I'm like, literally the same reason that Whirlwind is really good is the same reason that Punk Shock is really good. Probably better than Bumble Blast. Actually, yeah, probably like this. Yeah, that shit was crazy. Scratch still probably fine. I think I actually want to put Ignitor like top of A. Maybe better, because that, like, just spamming the tertiary attack is just so good on him. I couldn't believe it. Roller Brawl. I really like Roller Brawl. I think she's fine where she is, though. I think Blast Zone being pretty good. Scorp is also really strong. I kind of want to put him like up here now. Like I was rewatching the footage. The only problem is he doesn't launch enemies, so he kind of leaves himself a little open. You actually need to move down. Crazy that we have all these like swappers here. Actually, you're better than Hoot Loop. Actually, I don't know why Hoot Loop is this high. What am I doing? Hoot Loop is not this good. He is. Yeah, you know, honestly, Hoot Loop is right where Stink Bomb is, now that I'm thinking about it. Like I was rewatching the footage, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Because I put, like, Double Trouble in S, but thinking about it, his thing is not as good as Double Trouble's. And then I gotta move Lightning Rod up. Like, I don't know what I was thinking. And then you also pretty good. God, that tertiary, because it's just the same thing with Ignitor. It's just kind of like on a worse scale. So I think I am gonna move him up a little as well. I'm gonna move you. You also gotta move up. Yeah, basically Lightning Rod, literally Lightning Rod. But Hothead is fine where he is. Really like Boomer where he is. Maybe I can move him down because he's just. But the bombs are good. The bombs are good. Okay, I'm glad I moved Jet-Vac down already. I thought I didn't, but I'm glad I did. Because yeah, you're just like spamming projectile characters. Like I said, that isn't really that good. Every time I look at Slobber Tooth's position, I'm like, this is wrong, but I don't know whether it should be higher or lower. Because I feel like Ghost Raiser should be higher. This is a little more difficult than I was expecting. I think Ghost Raiser. I want Ghost Raiser to be higher. Like I was looking at the footage. I don't know. Probably better than T-Rex at least. You're fine. I actually think you're fine, which is funny. Is he fine? I don't know. It's like, what makes these guys so much worse? Just like a bad feel. Also, you got to move down to D. Also, you know, I called this tier Doomstone like before I even started the recording. And I'm like, yeah, he's bad. But then I like watched the footage again, and I'm like, yeah, he's not. He's bad, but he's not that bad. So here's what I'll do. I'll rename this tier to something that actually makes sense. There. See, now it's actually accurate to what I actually believe. I don't actually think that Dune Bug is the worst. Like, I'm like, you know, maybe I just suck. I also don't think Thumpback is really that bad. He's not as bad as I was really making it out to be. Cause like launching enemy, like yeah, it might actually be better than Eye-Brawl, and I think moving Eye-Brawl down to D tier makes more sense to me. I think you also need to move down to D. Like thinking about it, yeah, you're fine where you are. I think you need to move down in the tier. I almost feel like Sunburn is really that bad in this game. Because he is bad. I think I'll move him to the bottom. I don't know if I'm ready to make the commitment. Just, I think you should actually be put up here because you two basically kind of do the same thing. You have like the one melee attack that's really good. You should probably move up. Because the problem is that when I was making the tier list, I didn't exactly judge them all equally. Like I was like, you know, I played through the story with like as many of these guys as I could. But another thing is that like I did the arena challenges for like most of these, but some of them I just did like those weird like side quests. I don't even remember what they're called, like Portal Master challenges or whatever. And some of those are like pathetically easy. So I'm like, oh, I managed to use this Skylander to do this Portal Master challenge. Like, of course that was easy. God, I'm thinking way too much on this. This is funny. It ain't that serious. It really isn't. And yet here I am, thinking way too hard about this. Like, once again, like I'm looking at Ghost Raiser. You know what? It's not like it's gonna make that much of a difference, but I think this seems more correct. God, I'm making so many changes to these tiers. Like my explanation for it is not gonna make any sense. Now that I'm thinking about it, I feel bad for anyone who's gonna have to watch this. Oh shit. Whatever. I think this is the final tier list. But what? But wait. Now I'm thinking about it more. You gotta go down a little more. Okay. Now it's the final one. Now I think I'm correct. Now I think I'm correct. Oh god, dude. Dude, whatever. My entire opinion is just gonna like change and like I'm gonna upload this video and be like, God, man, I'm stupid. Why did I put him in B tier? Why did I put Zulu in B tier? Obviously, he's way better. Whatever. There's so many characters in this game that it's kind of hard to rank like all of them all together. Yeah, okay. I just keep making changes, and I'm like, okay, this is the final one. Actually, what if it wasn't? Okay, I think you need to move down a little lower. I'm just like, oh my god, dude, I'm so stupid. Ah. No, you gotta move down lower. Yeah, so, okay, so I think... Alright, I think, I literally think this is probably the final version of this. Like, I think as final as I'm gonna get, because because I'm always gonna be super picky about something. And I'm always gonna be like, oh, well, actually, but yeah, I think this is the final list. Sorry it took so long again. It's gonna happen again. I have other obligations, obviously. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.